Hello, thanks for your interest in my presentation. I'm talking about autobiographical accounts written by people with aphasia about their symptoms and their recovery. So this piece of research was a um, narrative systematic review. I won't describe the details of my search strategy now, but that's described on my poster. Um, I will briefly mention that a lot of these accounts are out of print and are not widely cited. So many of them I found through references in other autobiographies. There are a few reviews, most of which um, cover around 10 or 12 accounts, um, but there are uh, at least 71, and I expect that there are more which I failed to find, and probably already more since 2023, which was my cutoff date. Um, I'm just going to very briefly cover the main findings, which were that the number of such accounts has increased rapidly, and the reasons for that appear to be widened education and access to writing and publishing technologies. I think those are the main drivers of that increase rather than just that it's harder to find older accounts, because you can also see there's an increase in the diversity of people who are contributing their accounts. Initially, it was largely a very narrow circle of highly educated European scholarly men who were embedded in those scientific communities, whereas now there are people from many different backgrounds and men and women writing their accounts, including very recently more self-published accounts. And often those are shorter and written by people with still more serious language impairment symptoms. Um, I want to pull out just a few excerpts that show what I think is most interesting about these accounts, which is that they can contain insights into language processing and into recovery strategies, which are not the focus of contemporary scientific research. So looking at one of these very early accounts, Laudat, who did lecture and publish on aphasia, and so was part of those circles and therefore was discussed. He talked about the separateness of language from cognition. That was a that was a contemporary debate, and so that part of his account was very widely discussed. But he also talked about the involvement of receptive language, and that was not already part of debates, and so that was largely ignored. Um, there's an account here from the mid-20th century that describes a self-discovered approach to recovery, which is quite a lot like later the later development of melodic intonation therapy. What I think is interesting about that account is he describes the mechanism of it as being due to automaticity and memorization, which is aligned with some more recent research on melodic intonation therapy. And there's another account that this is one that I analysed in more detail in my PhD. Wolf 1973 talks about the role of self-monitoring and fatigue in her paraphasic word production. I think that these accounts contain a lot of very valuable data. They haven't largely been integrated with the literature. Often where these accounts are mentioned, there are a couple that have been higher profile or have been discussed in the aphasiology literature, but it's often with regard to participation and well-being, whereas I think that there's a lot to learn at the impairment level, and also in terms of recovery strategies and interventions. I look forward to talking about this and probably to discovering more accounts which my search strategy hasn't found that other people can let me know about. Thank you very much.